Hello, everyone. Jim here with Fantasy for the Ages, back with you for another one of our rapid review episodes. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to like it, help us with the YouTube algorithm so that people notice us out here. So if you like and you subscribe, you help us immensely. Thank you for that. Also, check out the show notes, other ways that you can connect with us on social media, Discord, Patreon. We'd love to hear from you. What am I here for today? Well, a rapid review episode means in 10 minutes or less, I'm going to try, I'm going to review a book that I've read, this time, Deadhouse Gates, Book 2 of Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. This will be a full spoil episode. Now, for me, full spoil does not mean I'm going to reveal everything. After all, I have just 10 minutes, and I just can't do it. I love the discovery of books too much to ever spill all the beans on something I've read. But I am going to give spoilers in here. This is a review episode, so keep in mind, if you haven't read this book yet, find the Book Blast episode I did on this book. That's probably the better one for you. Just a reaction, spoiler free. Come back to this after you've read the book. But if you've already been here, welcome. This is your space. So, yeah, this book, exceptional read, amazingly beautiful prose throughout it. Stephen Erickson does not just write the story, he creates poetry. He sings through the written word. I know, I'm waxing poetically myself. I'm not one normally to catch how beautiful the choice of language is in a book. I'm typically too caught up in the story itself. But here, this masterpiece, I was completely engaged and smacked over the head with just how beautiful the choice of language is in this book. The things he uses, it's just gorgeous writing. Impossible to miss. Yet, as beautiful as his word choices may be, he does it without being overly verbose, like some authors who may love their writing a little too much. I will not disparage them here. Check out my other episodes and you'll have found some. I have opinions. But this is just marvelous writing. The story picks up where we left off in Gardens of the Moon. Sort of. It focuses primarily on the task of two of the bridge burners we met in that story, Corporal Callum and the sapper Fiddler, who are accompanying the young man that they met, Crocus, and the former bridge burner Sari, a young lady now known as Apsalar. They're seeking to return her to the home from which she was taken for the use of the Shadow Throne House, but has since been released. The rest of the bridge burners and others of the Ninth Army from the previous story are mostly only mentioned in this book, although Quick Ben does make the briefest remote appearance. Nothing can be easy or simple in Malazan, so getting Apsalar home is not a simple and direct task. Complicating it is the fact that Callum has a side mission. He has this desire to stop by the Malazan capital and assassinate the Empress. I mean, he is a master assassin. Now, let's throw in the fact that the travel involved does mean multiple continents will be engaged in this book. So, starting one continent, then needing to cross a whole second continent in order to get to the third continent. That continent that they're supposed to cross through, a massive rebellion begins early in the novel and continues for the rest of it, throwing chaos on their plans. On the other side of that rebellious continent, we'll find the original base of the Malazan Empire, and not everything there is shiny and wonderful either. Complicating matters further is Corporal Callum is originally from this rebelling continent. These are his home people. And technically, he and the bridge burners are already in rebellion against the Empress. It doesn't take much for Callum to end up involved in what's happening in this rebellion, even technically kicking off the whirlwind, the blend of prophecy and magic that signals the actual revolt to begin. It also doesn't take much for Callum and Fiddler to become separated. Revolts and competing demands tend to cause such things to happen, especially in this book series. Deadhouse Gates is about far more than this one storyline, though. Early on, we find out the Empress has a new adjunct, Tavor, formerly of House Perrin. Now, that's a familiar name. Her slightly older brother, Ganos, was formerly the direct report to the previous adjunct to the Empress until he got caught up with the bridge burners in the last book, as well as a whole bunch of magic and politics, and now he's pretty much AWOL. Her response to her brother going AWOL was to step up and put herself forward to the Empress. Remember, this is a noble family. She doesn't want to see them now viewed through the lens of traitor that her brother may have earned. So she steps up and says, I will be your new adjunct. And as part of that process, she turns her back on her family, is willing to give up everything to commit and dedicate herself completely to the Malazan Empire and Empress Lysine. As a final act of that, she sends her youngest sibling, Felicin, off to a work camp, totally turning her back on her. Felicin is a heck of a character. Turned on by her sister, losing everything, and left to her own resources, basically in a prison you never get out of. She has people around her ready to help. She kind of gets thrown in with the outcast historian Heberick, he of the magic hands. No, that's not a sex thing. And Bowden, some sort of super muscular street thug who seems to take a liking to her, or at least an interest. Yet, quickly enough, in the work camp, Felicin decides these men by her side need her more than she needs them. And she trades her body to the head prisoner, who's also overseer of this work crew, trading her sexual relations for more rations and special attention for her friends. Oh, and she gets drugs for herself out of the deal, turning into an addict. Woohoo! What she fails to recognize as she's doing all these things is that Heberick is a short timer here in the prison. There's already a plan in motion to break him out. Oh, yeah, and Bowden is actually in prison at the behest of Felicin's sister Tavor, the adjunct. He was to protect her and help her escape as soon as possible. She really hadn't turned her back on Felicin. She just needed it to look that way as she became adjunct. So here's Felicin. There's a plan to get her out, and she's turned herself over to drugs and sex and has no interest in that. It screws up everything. This is only one of numerous examples of where things are not as they first, second, or even third appear in this story. There's so much more I could discuss here, but I'm going to limit myself to 3 last plot points. There is an amazing element at the core of this tale: the Wiccan escape across the continent, sheltering Malazan civilians stuck in a city when the continent rebels. This 7 cities continent. As it falls into full rebellion, Coltane, a Malazan general of Wiccan ethnicity, had just taken over the 7th Army, his new assignment. Coltane is basically the greatest leader of the Wiccans, and much of his 7th Army are his own people who follow him faithfully to the end. This includes many powerful magic users. That's always a win. When the continent falls, Coltane is left with the need to get the civilians of this city that are trapped with him all the way on one coast across the continent. Yes, a whole freaking continent, to the only city that still has a stronghold of Malazans supporting it. He has no navy with him. The navy was already recalled, so he's going to have to march overland through some really arid, difficult territory. Oh, while a massive rebellion is going on, and his armed forces are hugely outnumbered to the nth degree. And they are trying to protect tens of thousands of Malazan civilians, traders, nobles, people who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. If they had been by themselves, the 7th Army, maybe they could have gotten away, made some quick lightning strikes, and really even come out on top. Coltane is a brilliant general, but he has to try to protect these civilians who don't get military. They don't get how armed forces work. It's miserable, it's awful, but he is brilliant. He uses every last resource he has. A few chips fall his way, and they actually get over 100 leagues across this continent. It's a months long journey and gets most of the civilians into Erin, this city stronghold. He and the last of his armed forces die within sight of the walls, while the soldiers, other Malazan soldiers in the city, refuse to come out to help because their leader is a scaredy cat. He gets what's coming in the end, thankfully. But it's just brutal to see Coltane so close and to fall. Also heroic. Got a lot of people there to the city. We also see a bit of the story of Icarium, a mixed blood, near eternal Jagged wanderer, and his trail companion and guard, Mappo. Icarium suffers memory loss, and that is apparently all that keeps the world safe from him. There is much more to learn about these two, but we got some delicious tastes in this book. I'm leaving so much out. I'm already over time, but I must mention one of the many things that are not what they seem is that Empress Lysine is not so bad after all, apparently. Her takeover as Empress appears to be a move that may truly have been for the greater good. Callum discovers, his plan, assassinate her. No, he learns information that turns him away from that plan. He is not going to attempt to kill her. And this information he gets from Lysine herself. There is more we don't know yet, but that information is huge. That the big bad is not necessarily the big bad in Malazan Book of the Fallen. There's so much more I could touch on. The rest of Felison's story, Ascendance, Dujek One Arm and Whiskey Jack reveals, Heberic's magic hands. Again, still not a sex thing. But alas, I'm way out of time. Read this book. You will thank me. That's where I've got to leave you. Again, like the episode, look at the ways in the show notes you can connect with us. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.